YouTube, this is Charles, Wildcat Willie's older brother, finally getting back to the 300. Going to start looking into the fuel delivery of the unit. Been doing some house cleaning. Of course, we only get to work on this on Saturdays, so we are going to go get the fuel tank. We are going to start down here where the fuel tank mounts. We're not going to mount it up right away, but we need to determine if we have power to the fuel pump wire. We have the old fuel pump here that we're going to discard, and we're going to, I don't know if you can hear that or not, get rid of this dry brittle line that's been patched in many different places. It's a little bit of a challenge to get that out of there, but we will succeed and work on getting a new line. So another chapter begins in the Massey 300 rebuild. Okay, we're over here in the other shed. We're going to get the fuel tank out today, and that's going to be kind of exciting. We're going to get rid of a pallet. We have a pallet, one less pallet of parts. We have everything we need for the combine that we took off when we cleaned it. Things are getting a little dusty in here, but we'll work through that. We still have our parts machine right there. So we got a lot of good parts that are going to be going into this unit that we're rebuilding. Eventually we will be retrieving the cylinder bars out of this unit and moving forward. So one thing at a time, back to the fuel system. We're going to get this tank, we're going to look inside of it, we're going to inspect it. We are going to look at our sediment bulb, see how that's looking, probably replace it, and go from there. Okay, we have the fuel tank out of the storage shed. It is pretty nasty in there. I don't think you can see it. It looks like black tar, so we're going to have to investigate that. But we're not going to put this on right away anyway, so we may have to have it cleaned. First thing I'm going to do is remove this old sediment bowl, and so I'm going to do that now, and then I will start removing the old fuel line. Okay, sediment bulb removed. Bulb, whatever. You can see I had forgotten that they have this strainer up top, and you can see it's like tar on there, and of course has the old fuel stink in there. So we're going to, sorry about the camera there, we're going to look at getting this cleaned out, which is going to be a challenge. If you've never looked inside of one of these, there's actually walls in them somewhere about right in here inside on each end, and that allows it not to be sloshing too much back and forth and to give the tank some support. And of course, there are two halves that are crimped and welded right along here all the way around, and then they just gently bent them over here to mount them to the combine. Okay, we have the old fuel pump. Got the unit cracked open here, getting ready to disconnect that line. We got I'll have to set the camera down. Now we're going to remove the old fuel pump from the mounting bracket here. This unit then is done. The next thing I've got to get is this holder for the fuel line right there. Probably do that off camera. You can see this has already been patched once. Probably wore through in here on a belt or on this shaker arm. You can see the farmer patched it once. So we're going to rectify all of that. Okay, you'll have to forgive the lighting in here. I've got the fuel line. This thing is really stiff. Taken around, comes across the top of the hopper cross auger, right through there. And I've got it right under the variable speed mounting arm, which is right there. I've got this already disconnected. Then it heads back up under and behind the main thrasher drive belt that drives the whole thrashing mechanism when you engage it, right there, and heads back into there. You can see out of all that washing I did, still needs another day's worth of washing. There's thousands of angles. Fuel line mount is a fold over, thank goodness, because this bolt probably is not spot welded. You would have to be inside behind the concave holding that with a wrench if you had to take that off. So it's a good thing it's folded right there. Okay, so now I have that clamp bent back. The fuel line right through the main thrasher pulley is right here, and it's mounted to the frame. I don't know if you can see it. The combine again, right there. So now we have to get that bolt out, and then it heads off. I don't know if you can see it, under the engine. So we'll be back to the front of the engine. Lots of up and down to get the fuel line removed. Okay, we got that one out right down there, and then 6 inches down the way, we're mounted right on the plates where the motor is mounted. We got to get that one out. Hopefully it does not twist off. Okay, we got that one loosened. Did not twist off, thank goodness. Now we have to move around to the front of the engine. The final one is here, and you can see we've been repaired 1, 2, 3 times in a 16-inch area, plus down by the fuel tank. 4 repairs in the original line. So you know how it goes. Okay, we have it removed. We're going to fish it now out of the combine. See if we can bring it back here. Okay, we're doing pretty good. Now we got to go down. Okay, see if we can bring it down out of here. Okay, we have the fuel line removed. Obviously, it needed to be changed out. As you can see, had some crimped areas. It's really stiff and shot there, and it's over with for it. Okay, with the fuel line removed, we now can turn our attention to see if we have power back here through the wiring harness for the fuel pump that we're going to install so that we can pump fuel up to the engine. Okay, what I have done is went and got the battery out of winter storage. I try to keep my batteries in a heated shop if I can. I have installed it up by the motor. I have turned the key on. Got my test light here, 12-volt test light. Make sure I have a good ground right here. And this has been repaired 1 time, 2 times without any tape, and then this was on the pump down there. So, keeping that away from the frame. I have always been very fortunate with the 300 combines I've owned to have good wiring harnesses. I've never had to rewire one. So you can see we will have, with the key on, we will have power back here. We will fix this wire so that it's not bare. We'll get back into the original. We'll put a nice repair on at the appointed time and probably make it where it unplugs so it ain't being cut. And then it'll unplug two connectors that go together, get them at Napa, and then this will be solved. Okay, a quick recap today. We have our fuel tank. That has been removed when we washed the unit. We've seen inside of it that it is severely gummed up and rusted. So we're going to look into maybe having that cleaned on the inside, baked. I don't know which. We may even have to paint it after they're finished. But we want to start with a clean fuel tank. I will say all the other units that I had, I was able to just flush them, put a new fuel bulb on, and I used them with an inline filter, and I would carry a couple with me for when it would get clogged up. I would just drop back, change it out, and keep going, and eventually I worked through that, but we're not going to on this one. I feel it's too bad. We have removed the fuel line from the combine. What is left of it is laying there on the floor, measured about 11 feet long. I'm going to purchase about 13 feet. So if you're doing one, 13 feet on the fuel line should be sufficient to get it from the fuel tank to the motor. We have also installed a battery, turned the key on, and verified that we will have power back at the fuel pump. The wiring on the unit appears to be intact and in good shape and wrapped in black tape. I used a gravity-fed can set on top of the cab to run the unit just to verify it was worth rebuilding. So now we're working on the final fuel system. Sediment bulbs from the original tank. I did forget that they had this nice strainer that went up in there, so it would let sediment stay down at the bottom, and then you could pull fuel, so it would have a filter there, a screen in there, and then it would send it up to the combine engine. But we always ran an inline filter. This is probably pretty clapped out. You'll always be holding your breath if it will stay sealed, and as you can tell, it's just kind of nasty. I do have a replacement. This was bought when we went to rescue the 550 combine. There's a video back in WildcatWilly's history. I don't mind this unit. It screws right in. Everything would work, but I would like to maybe have that strainer up at the top. However, if we get the fuel tank boiled out, probably wouldn't necessarily be necessary because I will run an inline filter. Now I'm going to take a minute to talk about fuel pumps. This I took apart for you. I would normally just throw it away. This is an original. I have replaced many of these. When my father had his first 300 combine, I was probably about 10 years old, and he was trying to finish up with wheat, and this pump was going out, and I had to walk back by the fuel tank. He drove slowly and keep tapping on it so we could literally get the last round finished and the wheat hauled off to town, and then he was going to fix it. When we ran a 410 gas combine, we pretty well relied on replacing this every year. They are not, in my opinion, very reliable. Other people may have a different opinion. It looks like this one was built in 6-89. So maybe that would tell us the combine was running in 1989. I really don't know when the last time it ran. But these were like a piston pump. This rubber is like tar now. It was connected to here, right over here. and you would hear them back there chattering, and they supplied fuel up to the engine. When I did my first 300, I went to Napa and I got a rotary fuel pump, which was this one. And that part number was P as in Paul 4070, and in 2005 they cost $84.99. This one, I believe, from Massey cost about $100, and maybe you could get it other places, but this one, on the first one, never gave me any problems. I used it many years and I never had to worry about it. One of the things I like about it is it has a positive and a negative terminal, so you're not just relying on the being mounted to the frame. The wire will be to the frame, but you can clean both of those. That's one thing I liked about it. The rotary pump worked very well. I will tell you the reason that I have this one. Oh, it's a Carter. You can see it there. The reason I like this one, or I had this one to reuse, I tested it a little bit ago. I had a 510 gas with a 327 Chevy, and I said, well, I had such good success on the 300 that I will just put one of these on the 510. And it was a great 510. It worked very well. But after I did this, after I went through it, got it all ready to go to the field, it would never run right. Never run right. Rich as could be. I changed carburetors, I rebuilt carburetors, and I finally got tired of it, and I said, I got to get something done, and I threw it in the shed. And that's where the 510 sat for probably a year, maybe 2 years. I was pretty disgusted with it. I have the carburetors upstairs even still. And so after maybe 1 or 2 years, I can't remember exactly, I said, well, I'm going to try to figure that out. And I'd always been thinking about the problem. And I said, I'm going to go back. I've changed everything except that fuel pump, which I changed it and put this pump on. And I said, I'm going to go buy an original one of these, put it on, and see if that cures the problem. And wouldn't you know, it ran perfectly. That thing was unstoppable. This pump had been pumping too much fuel, I guess, to it, too much volume. And so that is an experience I learned, that this won't always work, but it worked great on the 300 slant 6 that I originally did in 2005. After that, the 510 ran flawlessly, had great power, sold it to somebody over in Indiana, and then recently I found it on an auction, a consignment sale, about 4 or 5 months ago. I didn't go buy it back, but it was interesting to see that it was still around. That pretty well concludes what I can do today. I have to round up new parts and get ready to get the fuel tank cleaned over here. And always take notes, because if I did not have this on the shelf, the fuel pump number would have been right there from 2005, and then you don't have to rely on your memory. Make your notes. It's very helpful when you're rebuilding your combine, plus it'll keep track, and if you ever sell it, you'll be able to say, hey, this is what I did, here's my notes. You don't have to go from memory. I hope you're liking this project. Please comment, like, subscribe, share. I enjoy working on them, and it's fun to see and save this old iron. So comment in the bottom. If you have comments down below, let me know. I'm always open to other ideas, and we'll just keep growing this community with Wildcat Willie. So just for laughs, I had fun. I took this apart all the way, and we got some aluminum pop metal here, probably called casting aluminum. There's a lot of copper wound around that goes down in there around a coil, make that jump up and down. I thought that was kind of interesting. Yellow brass fittings off of the fuel line, the original, and some yellow brass fittings for getting into the pump. And then there was another strainer in there. They really did keep the fuel pretty clean for what they had back then. I just thought you might find this interesting. The combine's making money now. Took me about 5 minutes to pull all that out of there. I just did it for kicks and thought you would enjoy it.